Hello, this is Alex Calvo Garcia. You're listening to the Iron Hour podcast.
Right, Iron fans, welcome back to the Iron Hour podcast, our first official one of the new season, and we're still in the National League North. We're doomed and consigned to another season here. Before we kick off, a special thank you to our sponsors, Best Blanks Wholesale. As we've talked about before on the pod, they do fantastic stuff. They've actually worked with the club before. They helped us, didn't they, in delivering those bucket hats, which went down really well. So a lot of people, I'm sure, will be listening possibly on Friday, possibly even on Saturday as they make the journey down to Brackley. I know three of the four of us from the podcast will be going down to Brackley, so it'll be a great game to kick us off. I know we'll have mixed views on how we think that one will go for the Iron, but guys, welcome back. Max, how are you doing?
All the better for seeing you two. Obviously, this is the first pod we've done since Garcia. I'm very jealous. How was it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I fangirled it the whole way through. Well, I kind of kept it together, didn't I, Marco, for the podcast? But as soon as we stopped recording, yeah, it was carnage.
Yeah, when I joined the actual chat, I thought I didn't know if Barry came to do a podcast or if we were going to see Taylor Swift.
Yeah, there was those vibes.
Yeah, but I mean, like it's Calvo Garcia, all can be forgiven. But no, let's just hope this podcast comes even close to the Garcia one. I'll be happy.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just explain Gareth's absence. So Gareth he's back at full-time work actually at the moment, which is a rarity for him. What we are going to try and do this season is, and we actually picked it up quite well at the end of last season, but what we're really going to try and do is get as many podcasts out for you guys as we can. So it might be that sometimes we only have three, it might be sometimes that we only have two, it might be that we have the full ensemble, whatever it is, but we are going to try to be a little bit more proactive this year. And also, actually, as we talk about the Fantasy Premier League a bit later on in the podcast, we're going to be on that as well this season, try and keep up with the engagement with you guys and make sure that we do actually come through with these promises of prizes and rewards. So be sure to stay tuned for more information about that later on. Right, guys, I thought we'd kick off, if it's okay, just by talking about pre-season, how we think it's gone, how we think it kind of shapes the team up as we look towards the new season. We've already talked about lots of other stuff on previous episodes, Butler's kind of appointment, the players that have come in and out. So I thought we'd probably just look at now, kind of summarising how we think pre-season's gone. Max, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, it feels like it's gone very quickly. I don't know if that's just because of the Euros. I think, look, pre-season is pre-season. There's been a few of the games where I don't think Scunny have played desperately well, but then I'm not sure that the fans, or possibly even Butler himself, knows what his best starting lineup is yet. It's also been quite interesting because it's probably been the first pre-season for a while where we've been trying out different formations. Again, we think we might know what kind of tactical setup we're going for, but are we 100% sure on that? It's certainly going to be an interesting one. Luckily, we don't seem to have picked up any kind of massive injury list on that basis. So, yeah, the main takeaway for me is really I just hope that Butler and the players have found it a useful exercise. Do they know more about themselves now than they did 4 or 6 weeks ago? Even are they more confident going into the season now than they were 4 or 6 weeks ago? Yeah, let's hope we can hit the ground running against Brackley on Saturday.
Marco, I think one thing that kind of stands out to me is just listened actually before we started recording to Butler's interview, which he did with Humberside, which actually went out this evening. Night of recording is Thursday. And he talked about, for him, it's kind of like the second season of a project for this squad. So he said this core group has been together 2 seasons now, but going into the second season. Now, the thing that stands out to me is we've taken on 6 additional players this summer. Possibly there's a 7th or even 8th to come in, depending on what we do with Braithwaite and this unnamed striker. So potentially 8 new players there. And we lost at 11 now. I've just worked out that I think of those 11, at least 4 possibly an argument for 5 were core players. So actually, that gives you a net differential of almost 13 players. So do you agree with the sentiment that this is kind of like the second year of a project, or does it feel almost like kind of a new cycle of players, Marco?
A bit of both, really. I think barring Butterfield, we've kept a lot more players than I originally thought would stay at the club. I know it's no secret that a lot of these core players are on good contracts, so it would take a substantial offer to come in and buy them, and not many people are going to take punts on National League North players. Regarding the actual core, I mean, you centre backs, we didn't lose any. I'm very surprised Coogan stayed. And then your likes of Clunan, Whitehall, Fitzsimmons, we haven't lost that spine. So in some cases, I can see where Butler's coming from, saying it's sort of the second year. Obviously, we know he was very close to the team throughout the season. So I can fully understand why he thinks it's like sort of a second bite of a cherry. But no, it'd be interesting to see, like, obviously, to say he has still got the same core, a lot of the same team, it seems like he's changing it up a lot regarding formation, playing style and everything. So it's interesting to see that even though, despite him having a lot of the similar sort of players, he seems to think they're better in other positions and they're different shape.
Just moving on, I mean, kind of sticking with that subject, but taking it on slightly, Max. We've talked there about the kind of differences of the players from this point this season versus this point last season. Would you say we are better squad, a worse squad, or very similar squad to the one that shaped up at the start of last season, Max?
So, look, time will tell in terms of results and proof on the pudding. But on paper, I would say we're a worse, thinner squad. But the reasons for that, certainly, I think from the club's perspective, they would say that they're financial, and you can often do more with a leaner squad. A slice of steak can have less fat on it, but more actual meat. I am interested in how they're going to set up formation wise, though, because it builds on Marco's point around the core. If you say that, right, we've still got the same core group of players, then that helps create stability. It helps carry it forward. But as you say there, Barry, we've had 11 players go. Butterfield, Ogle. I was probably less surprised that Coogan stayed, just because I think, particularly at this level, if you're going to spend big money on a player, I'm not sure it'd be a centre half. How you structure a team can cover weaknesses for less cash in those areas of the pitch, particularly at this level if you're well organised. But if, as it looks like, as they've tried in a lot of games of pre-season, if we roll into the season playing 3 at the back, then how that core is applied seems to me to be very, very different to what it was last season. We've had games in pre-season where Will Evans has been playing in central midfield, where Alfie Beeston has been playing up front. Whilst I do still think he's played well at times, Carlton Ubazunu, hoping I'm getting that right.
I think you're close. You're in the ballpark.
I'll take ballpark. He's been playing as a striker. Not necessarily convinced he's a striker. If you play 3-5-2 with 3 central midfielders, what are you doing with Cal Roberts? Are you playing him as a number 10? I'm not necessarily convinced that his best position is as a number 10. I think he's a winger. But look, that's why Butler's in the job. He's paid to make those kind of decisions and see if we can get the results out of them.
You make some really, really good points there, and actually quite a lot of food for thought for me. One thing I wanted to mention actually was I thought Carlton Ubazunu has really stood out in pre-season. For me, he's been the one player that I've looked at, including those that we retained and those that were brought in, and thought, wow, like there is a player. I do think he looks like a striker to me. I think he looks like the perfect striker to play in a 2, actually. I think if you're going to have Whitehall as, a bit of a cliche here, but your old style centre forward, stick it up, play off him. I think Carlton seems to be that perfect player to play off him. So I probably have slightly different views on you with regards to the position that Carlton will play. I think he looks like a natural striker to me. One thing I really do agree with though, Max, is you talked there about how often leaner squads can get better results over the course of the season. And Marco, I think you and I talked about this multiple times. It did feel last season that we were carrying so much excess fat, particularly towards the end of the season. I don't think they panicked. That's harsh. I do feel, and I said this at the time, I do feel that we brought players in just to fill voids that we necessarily didn't have. And actually, it doesn't send the right messages to the players that you've already got in the building then. Because when you bring those original players in, you're saying you're going to get your chance in the squad if there's injuries. Then those injuries come, and then you say, oh, actually, we've had a change of heart. We want to look elsewhere. It just didn't quite send the right signals to me. So I'm happier that we have a much leaner squad, and the indication from the club is that we will operate with a leaner squad this season.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Tamworth's a prime example. Everybody knows we're playing every week. Obviously, barring injury, something too horrific, it's going to be the same 11. I mean, last year we were saying, obviously we were spoiled. We had so many riches. We had Danny Elliott warming a bench, which is unheard of at this level. I know he's obviously dropped a level, but you'd feel like that's probably financially motivated as well as a good chance of getting a promotion with Macclesfield. So yeah, no, 100% agree. Just coming back to the formation and obviously E.G. Carlton, I think Saturday will be a massive indicator to where Butler sees Carlton fit in. I'm leaning just with Barra this one. I think he probably is going to be a forward, only going off his videos from last season. Obviously, he scored quite a few goals. They're all in the box and they're all quite central. So I think he maybe got played up there for I forgot who he signed it for. Not Brackley, the other one. Charlie. So I think obviously he maybe got played up top for them as well. But like I said, very interesting. But with the 3-5-2, I think our main goal threats, obviously Whitehall's your poacher, but I think all our goal threats with Roberts, who's obviously a wide man, I don't think is a 10. I think Law's going to have a huge season. He's a wide man. Both of those aren't going to be defending, let's be honest. They are not going to be comfortable in a 5-3-2. Roberts is one of those players where you just need him on the ball in the final third. You don't want him chasing back, making silly tackles, risking an injury. We know he's quite injury prone. That's the last thing we want. So it'd be really interesting to see. And I feel like with this formation, the reason why I think he's got to please a lot of our better players don't fit into that system. As crazy as that sounds, I mean, Scales was probably a contender for Player of the Year last year, and we're playing a right wing back, which does happen to suit him. But still, it's a huge risk, and I just, like I said, I hope he gets it right. I hope we all eat humble pie. But I am very worried regarding formation and obviously sort of the pieces to fit the puzzle.
I know you are very apprehensive about this 3 at the back or 5 at the back, whatever you want to call it. What we will do is when we come to the fans' questions a little bit later on in the piece, we'll really kind of analyse what we think our preferred formations are, because obviously we've seen a couple of different operating styles in the course of games. And one more thing I wanted to touch on actually, Marco, is at the Gainsborough game. So we think, was it 5-3 we won? And I remember you saying, have they picked these positions from a hat or something? It's like, you had Will Evans in CDM. You had Kean Scales at fullback. You had Alfie Beeston as a centre forward.
Yeah, I don't know what is going to happen if you play Beeston in his actual position. I don't know if there's like a big thing in training, like oh, don't play him centre mid, don't play him centre mid where he's best. I feel like we've seen his best performances at Beeston at centre mid, and we're doing everything we can to not put him there. I do not understand it, and I feel for him because when he does have a bad game, either if that's up top or if we do put him out wide, where obviously played last year for a bit, I feel like he's just very open to criticism because that's not his position. And
oh, Marco, I've got some really bad news for you. So I was checking the official club page earlier, just so I could get my kind of ducks in a row preparing for this with our squad. And they've listed him this season as an attacker. So he's not in the midfield category this season as what the club are categorising him. They are officially categorising him as an attacker.
Yeah, but I mean, is Will Evans in defenders? Because I've watched him play. Watched him play like Rodri against Gainsborough, apparently. And that doesn't work for me either. I'm not convinced. I've got awful flashbacks of McArdle sitting in front of that back four. And I don't want to see that. Evans' best place is right in the middle. But again, we're saying all this. A ball's not been kicked yet. I'm happy to eat humble pie, and I hope Butler gets it right. But I'm looking forward to Saturday. I really am. I think we'll get a really good indication of where we're at. But one thing that is interesting, I know the game at Glenford Park versus Halifax. Obviously, was it Halifax? There was a game where we went 1-0 down.
We're 1-0 down.
Yes.
Okay, then what happened? Did we lose 3-0?
No, oh yeah, Chesterfield. Sorry, yeah, Chesterfield game. Obviously, he changed once we'd gone 3-0 down after 20 minutes. He actually changed the shape. So actually changed formation. Everyone said we looked a lot more solid. I wasn't actually at the game, but everyone said we looked a lot more solid, and everybody seemed to know what we're doing in a lot more solid formation. But in this league, we can't afford to be going into games experimenting with 3-5-2, going one down, then actually playing our best football in a different formation. We really
yeah. Well, this is the point. The Halifax game was the one we won 1-0. But this is the point, isn't it, Max? What Marco says there. The Gainsborough game, for example, we were losing, and then he made a whole raft of substitutions. And I said to Marco 10 minutes later, "Oh, we look really good now." And Marco said, "Well, let's hope he makes those 8 subs every week then." Like, it's not representative of a proper game, is it, pre-season, Max? It's really difficult to get a barometer on where we are.
No, and Marco is always at his funniest when A, he's had a couple of pints, and B, we're not recording. Look, there's a couple of points there. Theoretically, I do agree you can be most effective when you've got a leaner squad. I think the year we won the League One title, for example, that core group of players was 14 or 15, really, but it does come with risks. You need everyone to be at it. You can't be carrying any passengers. You can't be carrying key players getting injured pretty regularly. Even though we did have quote unquote fat in certain areas last season, I think all of us noticed the difference going forward when Roberts was injured and when Smith went back. Yeah. One of the signings that probably perplexed fans the most was Yumby coming in from Bradford. And I think that was perhaps a little bit of reflection of, oh shit, we're now short in wide attacking areas, which if you carry a thinner squad and you said, no, we're really committed to that, well, that comes with risks for better or worse on the playing side of things. And you will be in a situation where you do sometimes have to put square pegs into round holes. So if we run with 3 at the back and we take a chance, I think we're going to be having games this season where we're going, he's not a striker, he's not a wing back, and we probably need to be getting used to that, to be honest. But like Marco says, if we go down to Brackley on Saturday and we turn them over, then nobody will care. All anybody wants is for us to win games and for us to get promoted. And look, if everybody had the same opinion about everything, football would be a bloody boring sport. So, I'm just glad there's quite a lot still to debate and discuss, to be honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we say every podcast, don't we? But the fact that we're still here and having a club is ridiculous. Now, that leads us quite nicely, actually, that segue onto our opponents on Saturday, Brackley, because Brackley are a really good team. A little bit background information. We played them 4 times last season. Mixed odds. We drew 0-0 in the FA Cup. We lost 3-1 away the replay. Then the reason why I say a good segue, because the game we beat them 1-0 at home was the hallmark day of the season for us. It was when we got that bumper crowd. We had I won't call them protests, but we had the unity march down to the stadium. Butterfield, like I say, scored that free kick. We won 1-0. And it was like a real celebration that day, actually, of the club that we had. Contrast that with the 4th time we played them that season when we lost 2-0 away, and we couldn't have looked further off the pace that day. It was 2 quick goals after half-time kind of did for us that day. Before we look at Brackley, Max, finished 3rd last season. Really, really tight team. Actually, behind Tamworth, they were joint 2nd for the team that conceded the fewest goals. They actually conceded fewer goals than we did. What do you remember about the 4 times you saw Brackley last season?
So they were the best side I saw us play last season in terms of when we played against opposition. I know they're a bit cursed in the playoffs. I think if you take away the COVID season, is it the last 7 years they've got into the National League North playoffs? Yep. Barra's holding up 7 fingers. I'll take it.
That's on one hand.
And they have yet to get promoted. Yeah, but he's from Gaul, so they're all on one hand. They I think they did have quite a different setup in the home and away games. So I think of that the game of the Unity March that we won 1-0 at home, for example. That was a corking Butterfield free kick. A real moment of quality from a real quality player that we don't have this season. Obviously, he's gone to Gateshead, and very best of luck to him. But from open play, I'm not necessarily convinced we would have scored. Whereas in the 2 games at Brackley, they were probably just about the only side last season I really saw who went, right, we're going to get the ball down, we're going to move it quickly, we're going to get it into the final third, and you're not going to be able to cope with our quality on the ball. And certainly in the league game, and in the end, for the FA Cup game, I thought we were going to hang on, and I was wrong. Their quality showed. We went to Brackley twice last season, went to their ground twice, and we lost 5-1 on aggregate. So this is going to be a real acid test for us on Saturday. And it's a bit like Marco said. I was at the Chesterfield game, and look, don't get me wrong, Chesterfield look a good side. I fancy them to do well in League Two this season. I believe they might even be the bookies' favourite for promotion. People think, yeah. I definitely, if you can get a decent price, I definitely think they're worth a fiver each way at the very least. But we have been vulnerable, and I think at times this season, if sides are brave enough to get the ball down and move at a pace, our 3 centre halves looked really vulnerable to that against Chesterfield. So if Brackley can repeat what they did at their ground to us last season, Saturday's going to be a tough afternoon, and we're going to have to defend well.
No, absolutely. I'm kind of laughing there because I do take your word as gospel, Max, when it comes to bets. If Marco had told me that Brackley were favourites,
I was doing my annual start of the season, Premiership, Championship, League One, League Two, and Chesterfield were favourites. But I think I don't like backing teams to win the league, so my bet's soon off. So I think I actually popped them in to get the playoff spot at 6-4, which is still really good value.
How are we? I'm just waiting for Harry Redknapp to follow us. Alexandra.
Please bet ostensibly.
I think no. I tell you, I think it is a good price. I had a really good mate of mine from uni who's a big Newcastle fan. Oh, reach out. Oh, do you think Scunny are worth any money to win the league this season? And yeah, you're both pulling faces, and that was why I said to Phil, look, I've not put any of my money on it, but my tip is Chesterfield in League Two based on what I've just seen. Mm. And then he replied with, "That's not much of a tip, is it, Max? They're favourites."
6-1. 6-1, still not bad.
No, gun to head, I'd think Brackley are the one team in this division that I think could do. Look, you can't make the playoffs like 7 years in a row and then not get promoted at some point. Surely that's just insanity. Surely the world doesn't work like that, does it? I don't know.
Doesn't it?
Right, before we're going to move on to our next segment, your views on Brackley. What do you recall of last season? How worried are you about Saturday? Or actually, do you have elements of positivity about you?
I mean, the away games, like Max says, them actually, I thought, obviously it was like quite early-ish on in the season, and it was quite refreshing to have a team actually come at us toe-to-toe, which is what we wanted at that time, because we thought we were better than any other side in the division at that point. I think us not knowing what our best formation and team is probably a bonus that they don't know what our best formation and team is. So if it is a case of them actually having a go, it'd be interesting to see how we adapt. If we can play to our strengths, which in my opinion is our wide players and our forward players. I think it makes you a really interesting game. Like Max says, I thought we were going to hold on in the FA Cup, but obviously it just wasn't to be. But without a doubt, I think obviously across social medias, X and whatnot, Brackley seems to be at the top or thereabouts in a lot of people's predictions, and I don't think that's no fluke. I think Saturday's going to be tough, and I mean, let's just hope we can sort of reciprocate last season with the win at Tamworth on the opening day, and even if it's a white hole over a kick, it'd be lovely. But I'm not fussy. Let's just get what we can and get out of there.
Absolutely. Let's move on to the questions from the fans. We've got so many questions this week, guys. We've got like 20 plus questions. So I've kind of marked a fair chunk of time to get through all of this because I think it's nice for the fans to have that little bit of engagement so they can hear their questions read out. We can kind of get through the various different thoughts because a lot of what the fans tend to do these days is send the question and then put a little bit of opinion on it, which I think is quite nice. So we'll kick off with Tom Snowden. And Tom Snowden asks what the strongest starting at 11 and formation for the Brackley game, based on what we've seen pre-season, will be. Marco, you can give me an 11 if you want. You don't have to. Give me the standouts. Who do you expect will be playing up front? What do you think the form will be?
Roughly, ballpark. What do I think, or what do I think should be, or what do I think Butler will play?
Give us both.
I think we should stick to 4-3-3. I know Jimmy played it last year, but mine would be Fitzsimmons. It'd be Coogan. This is where we get stuck. Just because I've not seen too much of him, but I do think he's going to be. Obviously, he's going to play this season. I think it would be Evans, but I think we're going to play back three of Evans, Nicholson, and Coogan. I think Scales will be the right wing back. I think Denton will be the left wing back. I then think it will be a midfield three of Clunan. I forgot his name. New signing. Rowley.
Okay, Rowley, yeah.
I also like Brogan. I do like him, but I don't think I think it might be Shrimpton. But obviously, I'm not sure. And I'd quite like to see Shrimpton. I think it's so important still having local lads in the team.
Yeah.
So it'd be, I think we'll see Carlton and Danny Whitehall. But then you're leaving Laws.
Some huge omissions there.
Easton. Exactly. It's so tough. For me, I'm playing a front three, a narrow front three of Carlton, Whitehall, and Laws. With the same midfield three, and I'm taking Nicholson out of the back five and playing a 4.
Do you know what? I'm going to be hypercritical here. So all last season on this podcast, you came on here and you said, what we need is a player to come in and have that long throw. We've signed a player who has that in his arsenal, and now you want to put him on the bench.
I love it. And you have to get him in the team. I think he will play. But I've only seen him for 20 minutes at games. So for me to say he should be starting is very harsh. I think I'm very excited to see it. As sad as it sounds. Very excited to see a bloke with a long throw. Let's just be careful here. Because I do think if we are playing with 3 as well, sending Coogan and with it being Evans or Boyce even, sending those 2 big guys, adding into Whitehall, etc., for a big, we could be a really dangerous threat from set pieces from throws, which is something we've lacked and something that Tamworth had in their locker, which I was very jealous of. So if we are playing 3 at back, which looks like we are, I can see that work into our favour. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, it's a good question because I don't think anybody knows 100%, including management, just because he's got such an array of talent to pick from. And but Robertson Law is my big one. I think we'll see on Saturday.
So I've got a smile because it's at the time of recording this 9:15 at night, and I can hear my eldest son sneaking biscuits because he doesn't realise I'm in the next room. So that's that going on right behind me. I'm trying not to bite. Okay. So that's interesting, right? Max, what do you think the formation will be, and does that vary from what you hope it will be?
I think the formation will be 3-5-2, and based on the personnel that we've got at our disposal, I don't think the 3 at the back suits us. Although I am interested, we've talked about we're going to have a thinner squad this season, but then there's still 3 or 4 areas that we're not sure about who we pick and play. I know in August it's different. When you get to November and you've got injuries or somebody's disappointed or somebody's played really well, that can chop and change sometimes. I think he will play 3 at the back. It certainly looks like he's been steamrolling to that. In terms of who I would play, I'd probably have Fitzsimmons in goal. Personally, I'd probably have Nicholson at left back. I've never bought in. He did play there at times for Boston as well. And whilst he would be a more defensive option at left back, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I've never fully bought in to the modern obsession with full-backs having to be amazing going forward. And I do love his long throw. It's it's already been
Beat Marco, then we can see that's that now. Okay.
No, okay. Well, I'm prepared to do it. Marco has written on a post-it note in capital letters, "Why does Max hate Denton?" And I don't. Tyler Denton can't throw the ball 40 yards.
The mark of a good footballer.
The centre back can, so let's put him at left.
Look, if it's good enough for Pep Guardiola and Tony Pulis, who in many ways are my two real-world inspirations, then I think it's good enough for Glanford Park on a Tuesday night.
So I've got a theory with you. Max. I think you make decisions or opinions on people early, and then you just stick to it, regardless of the facts that are presented to you. You've nailed your colours to the mast. You stand by it, and I think you've taken exception to Denton. And regardless of what you see, you'll never change your opinion. Now, am I right or wrong?
I think the first bit might be right. If I decided, if my first impression of somebody is that they're a good egg or a bad egg, then I do often stick to that. But in terms of on the football, look, all any of us want to see is good performances. But look, we'll see, won't we? I've also got concerns about the right. I'm not concerned. I'm not convinced that Barrows is a natural wing back. I think in many ways Ogle would have been the perfect player for that position, but that ship has sailed. Again, best of luck to him. I would personally play 4-3-3, a bit like Marco says. I'd probably start Beeston in the middle of the park as well as one of those three. I know that's not always very popular, but his best performances last season came when he was playing in the middle of the park. I thought that last half an hour against Chester at home, for example, when they were really up against it and they had 10 men, and the central midfielders were having to work really, really hard. I thought he changed the game. I thought he's put in good performances in central midfield in League Two, never mind the National League, never mind the National League North. I would probably go for Roberts and Carlton out on the wings. I sympathise a bit with Law. Obviously, it's not totally his own fault that he missed, big chunks of last season due to injury. But look, we'll see what Butler goes with. I think it will be three at the back. I think playing with wing backs, if you get it right as a system, can be really, really effective. But it's a hard system to get right. Your wing backs become incredibly important. One of your central midfield three's got to be really creative. Your back three cannot be slow. When there's big gaps between the edge of the centre halves and the wing backs, they've got to be able to recover. It's no coincidence that when England play three at the back, Kyle Walker makes that system so much more effective because he's as fast as fuck and he can recover at possession when they get caught on the break. So it'll be interesting, if we're not up and about the top of the table by the end of August, will people start getting twitchy? I honestly don't know.
But bit of balance. I think we should play three at the back. I think actually pre-season we've looked fairly okay. I think that seems to be the formation that Butler wants to play. So he's earned the right by being the manager to at least have a go for a few games, 3-4 games with his preferred formation. Personally, you guys know I'm going to say this, but it won't happen. I would have Boyce as my central, one of the three. I'd have Nicholson on the left, and I'd probably have Evans on the right. It's harsh on Coogan.
You're dropping Coogan altogether?
Because I can only pick three. I'm going for three at the back, so yeah.
Play Evans in midfield, you coward.
Now, do I think that will happen? No, obviously not. I don't think there's any world in which Boyce is one of the three preferred four if they're all fit. That's just my opinion. I think the reason why I would put... So this is quite interesting. The reason why I would put Boyce at the centre back is he's probably the least mobile, and I think in that system you probably do want your least mobile in the middle. You wouldn't have Nicholson there ever because he's the left-sided player, so you actually want to kind of utilise that. And if you play Boyce on the right, I do think you have a tendency to get caught out for those reasons you've just explained with regards to you lose possession and you're in trouble. But controversially, I wonder actually if the opposite logic to why I'm saying you would play Boyce is why he will actually play Coogan as the central of the three. I wonder if he's got Nicholson, Coogan, and Evans as the three options. Actually, in terms of balance, he probably will then put the most athletic one, which would be Coogan, in the central defensive role. So it's bizarre because I think Butler will do the complete opposite to what I'm suggesting for the opposite reasons. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, but you made a really good point the other day when we were speaking, obviously off camera. You said with Nicholson, Evans, and Coogan as your back three, which obviously leaves Boyce on the bench. Boyce still walks into pretty much any team in the National League North, which obviously we're saying we've got a thin squad, but to have that problem of getting Boyce in that three is a really good one to have. And I mean, one of our centre halves gets injured, we are more than capable with Boyce. So it's a good problem.
It is a good problem. My worry is, and I know this is probably overcomplicating it a bit, but if you play Coogan as the right centre back, right, I feel like you kind of lose your balance a little bit because there's no way Nicholson could ever be as athletic or mobile as him. Although he's quite mobile, he certainly could never be as quick as him. And I just feel like you lose that balance across your back three. So you kind of want your anomaly in the middle, whether that's being super athletic or being not as immobile. Does that mean?
Yeah, a back three for me. I don't know if obviously we're going to come on to this, but a back three, it screams of more opportunity for things to go wrong. You want your errors, if you are to make errors, higher up the pitch. Playing three centre halves, I just feel you're so much more liable to make a mistake with defenders running through the three. It's so important. Communication's got to be even better than a four. And then you do need your wing backs at certain times. Let's be honest, if we don't have the ball, it's going to be a five, whether we want to get it or not. Large parts of the game, it's going to be a back five. And then you lose your midfield threat because your midfield are going to drop in. And then you're just left with a flat two up front, which you don't really see very often anymore. Two actual strikers playing up front. Normally you sort of get that fake striker dropping in behind, sort of where we sort of saw Butterfield sometimes last year, or what he's done with Roberts pre-season sometimes, and Beeston as well. But with the three, I am very worried. I'm not going to lie. I'm really worried. But I just think in good teams, it's the perfect formation, but I don't know if we're good enough to be playing that. Does that make sense? Again, I hope I'm wrong. I just think at this level, against a couple of big strikers, some fast strikers around him, it could cause mayhem in a back five, three.
I hear you. Right, what we'll try and do is we'll move on as quickly as we can, get through a lot of these questions because I would like to get through as many of the questions as we can. Max Tomo asks, who do you think will be the biggest competition for playoffs and promotion? Quick one. Give us 1-2 teams.
Brackley and Chester.
Nice. Marco?
Fully agree.
Yeah. Yeah,
oh,
I agree as well.
Quick one, outside, Scarborough.
Nice, yeah. Josh Warringer asks, what's your most anticipated fixture this season? I'll go first, Scarborough away. Hopefully we get an Indian summer. Anyone disagree?
Yeah, I'm gonna go for Marine. I used to work with a bloke who's a big Marine fan, and I never thought I'd see it, but now that we've got it, I'm determined to enjoy it.
I can't make Scarborough, so it's Ferriby away for me. It was a cracking day last year. And let's just hope it's a little bit more sunny.
Where, sorry?
Ferriby.
Barnsley?
Oh, Barnsley. God, I've only had 2 beers. Barnsley, yeah, that was one of my favourite. Obviously, Scarborough was a great day, but I don't actually remember quite a lot of it. So it'd be nice to.
I'm surprised you can remember any of Farsley, to be honest, mate.
Both been good day, but
to be fair, Scarborough finished 0-0, and you're not forgetting a lot. I'll be honest with you.
It was a tough watch. One thing I'll always remember, not just Scarborough, he was in net against York as well. Ryan Whitley in net just gives me nightmares. So I'm quite glad I'm not going this year.
Yeah, I think it's Whiteley. Yeah. Cheeky one from that's that thing we always have, isn't it? Is it Whiteley or Whitley? Do you remember the FPL last season?
Yes, it is.
Anyway, Cheeky one from Phil
Got
Pinder.
the name wrong, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's
Cheeky
definitely
one
not
from Phil Pinder. He says, "Can you review the predictions you made before the playoffs?" No, Phil, we can't. Actually, get stuffed, mate.
Do
I,
not
I,
comment
I,
anything about that.
I can
No, you
because because when we were all asked where we'll be in 12 months' time, and I was the only one out of four of us who predicted the National League North.
Fake news.
It's
Now,
fake news, yeah.
Yeah.
It's fake news.
It needs a community note underneath this.
now I predicted we'd be top of the National League North, which I'm not necessarily sure is a prediction I'd be prepared to wholly stand by. But I'm going to be closer than these three mugs by default.
Yes, correct.
I'm giving
Simon
it my
Seffers. Nice. Simon Seffers asks, this is an interesting view, actually. He says the squad seems slightly unbalanced. Too many central midfielders, in my view, especially if we sign Braithwaite. Good point. A striker is needed, a fox in the box type, and I worry we need another centre back. I'm not sure we need another centre back, Simon.
I think
Marco?
Boyce would definitely disagree. I see. It's hard to answer that one because we don't know what formation he's playing. If he is playing a 2 up front, then maybe we possibly do need another striker because Fishburne hasn't really been tearing up any trees.
Yeah, but you're forgetting about Beeston, mate.
Oh, yeah, I made number 9. Yeah, but I sort of do see where he's coming from. Midfield-wise, I think we're probably fine. Obviously, we haven't sort of replaced anybody of Butterfield's level, but that's never going to happen.
I think Cloonan's really going to step up this season, you know.
I hope he does. I think he didn't have a bad season last
time. Are you just saying that because we've sponsored his shirt again?
Yes.
No, I think he was an easy scapegoat, and I think he got thrown under quite a lot. I do agree. I think if we do play a free midfield, he gets to the foot on the bar. I think he's got a lot of quality.
If I know we bang on these, I certainly bang on this. If we're playing three midfield and you need someone like for like to replace Butterfield specifically in that kind of number 10 role, for me, your best chance is Beeston. That's his natural position, and I don't see why we don't play him there more often.
One for you, Max. Tommy Hinsley says, "Do you think we will be able to play 2 up top over the course of the season predominantly?"
Yes, that's not the bit of 5-3-2 I worry about.
Good point. I think you already talked about this, Max, and you had similar views to what Aidan Wilkinson is saying here. So, Marco, can we compete with Barrows at right wing back all season? I feel like right back is comfortable and assured, but asking for him to play that right wing back role as a 5 seems excessive.
Yeah, I don't mind Barrows at all. I think he'll be fine. I don't like, again, I sort of do agree with him. I don't think a back 5 would suit him. I watched a few of his games towards the end of last year because I was an absolute idiot and thought we still had a chance of catching Tamworth. So I watched the Kings Lynn's game against Tamworth. And in a 4, where obviously he's not relied on to go forward too much and his job is just to defend, I think he's more than capable. So I think... If obviously we don't know formation, but in a 4, yes. In a 5, no. I do think you will probably see scales there.
We just talked about Cloonan there briefly. Andrew Cooper says, a question for Cloonan. Fortunately, we don't have those links, but I'll read your question out nonetheless. Do you get paid more for passing sideways and backwards? Oh, that's harsh, Andrew. I mean, he maybe isn't the most attacking player, but I think he's got the role. And as Ado replied actually to him, I think he could be our player of the season this season. I really do think he's going to have a good season. One from Becky. She asks what our starting 11 would be. We've gone through that. And she's said here, who will be our biggest competition? Again, we've already talked about that. This is a really good question. She says, if you could have any 3 National League North players, who would they be? I'll go first. I can't think of 3 off the top of my head, but I'll give you one straight off the bat. And I'm going to say Minahan at right back, who ended up going to Southport from Buxton. He was the one that I was desperate for us to sign. I don't think it'd fit into 5 at the back, though. That was fundamentally the issue. If we are going to play 5 at the back, he is not the right player. If you play 4-4-2 or a variation on 4-4-2, I think it'd been perfect. Are there any players? I know I'm putting you on the spot here, guys, so feel free to take the floor. Any players jumped out to you last season?
Max, go first.
God, the silence was deathly there, wasn't it? The problem is, I would have said half a Tamworth squad.
You can have them.
I'm gonna forget his name, and this is awful. I was really impressed with Brackley's right winger. When we went away to them, I want to say he was the number 7.
Okay.
And because a lot of the times when I was impressed by Sounds this last season, it was structurally. So how?
Yeah. This is it, isn't it? I agree with you. The systems were the most impressive thing that we came against last season.
As a stand-up, I really like. Obviously, he's gone as well. I liked Whitehouse at Chester, obviously with us. I thought he was really impressive last season. Obviously, he's dropped a level as well. I forgot. I'm going to do another one here, but it was the best player I've seen last year by a country mile, and it was Darlington, number 10. The guy who scored against us for Darlington early on, played behind the striker. That is going to do my head in. Max, help me out here.
Max is too busy Googling names. Whilst Max Googles,
I am indeed.
whilst Max Googles names, Mark, I've got one for you.
Okay.
Mike Jackson asks what the standouts of the pre-season. For him, this is interesting. Barrows, Carlton and Clunan have been the standouts.
Who do I think stood out pre-season? I'm with you. I think Carlton looks a really good signing. Other than that, with the new guys, I think they've all looked pretty solid. But for me, he's been good pre-season and he's still fit. It's Jason Law. I think Jason Law.
Yeah.
I think Law's going to be massive for us this season, and he's my. Obviously, we don't condone betting. He's my outsider bet for player at season.
We don't condone betting. That's all we do.
No, if he can stay fit, the guy who I liked from Darwin has now left.
Okay. Nice. And so, Max, did you get the name of your number 7?
No, I was Googling for Darwin. I was trying to help Mark.
Okay, Max.
I've got him. Cameron Salkeld.
Cameron Salkeld.
Yeah,
okay, yeah, I remember him. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Salky.
Salky. Well, Salky, why didn't you just say? Nice, trained young lad, cracking player.
Good question, Matt, because my National League North past Scunthorpe is, some would say with Scunthorpe is pretty.
I was going to say you hide it so well. I mean,
honestly,
basically stats
too. Like, it's so nice going to other teams like, he could be a threat today. I'm going to Brackley on Saturday, and this is no offense to it, Brackley or any Brackley fans. I don't know one of your players. No.
You turn up right at games this season. You go, what colour do we play in? Is it?
What colour's our third kit? But no, honestly, I turn up most weeks not knowing who is in my team until I've seen them on my first game, and then I can worry about them at the away game.
Max, Paul Bennett asks, how does Butler fit Roberts and Law into that 5-3-2? Well, isn't this what we've been debating all night?
In my view, it doesn't, or certainly not if they're going to be as effective as we'd like them to be. I've just come up with a better answer to the National League North players, and that's Blackett at South Shields.
Yeah, he was the name eluded me. I want to say Blackhorst, but yeah, Blackett, great show.
That's a pub, isn't it? The Black Horse.
Yeah. I don't know yeah, good show.
And actually, I think I like the logic of a little man playing off Whitehall, because that is potentially a worry I'd have for us in the final third. Is that if Whitehall's not really at it without Elliott, there's a little bit of a vacuum there, particularly if we can't rely on Butterfield 30-yard screens.
Mako, this is an interesting one from Brad Guest. He says, do you think Butler will get every single player to defend a corner like the other managers seem to have done, when if they left one or two players up front, obviously then creates an opportunity and it takes their players away to occupy a space? He has an interesting theory for why we might never do that. He says, do you think the reason we bring everyone back is to literally crowd out the box, to give their attacking options less space to exploit, rather than the obvious solution of we just have more players to mark. Like he thinks what we're trying to do there is occupy the space. What do you think of that theory, Marco?
Just thought another player, Michael Gash from Peterborough.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Back to Brad's question.
That is a great shout, and the jokes write themselves.
Yeah.
But no, corner wise, it's tough because we, for years, to my recollection, have always gone every man behind the ball for corners.
Yeah.
And now you statistically having an ex-defender as manager, you would probably think we would again have every man behind the ball for set pieces. I don't like it, but I can see why they do it. And I think Bradley's probably right in the sense that you leave a lot less space for people to run into. But to me, I mean, for example, last year, it doesn't matter who's up there, you take a man out of the box. So even if you have Scales up there, who's obviously not going to win any headers in the box, I think it's worth just leaving a body up there, just to sort of limit that danger in the box. But I get both sides. I get both sides of the argument, but I'm not too concerned about set pieces and corners with the amount of height and that every other position on our pitch is going to be a centre half this year. So I think we'll be fine from set pieces. I do.
So I think this is I do genuinely think this is a really interesting question. I expect Butler to have every man behind the ball, one on the edge of your own box if you're lucky, because that's what the vast majority of sides are doing nowadays. And being the one person in the room who goes, no, actually, I don't think that's right, is quite bold. I really liked what I'm pretty sure it was Southport did against us last season, where as a matter of policy, they were leaving 3 men up front, because then straight away it forces you defensively to think about what you're going to do. Because actually, it's a brave decision. If you go man for man, you're creating 1, 2, 3 situations. So if you left 2 up front, chances are you might get 3 of the opposition players immediately out of your box.
Yeah.
In a way, I don't, depending on where it is, I don't mind space if you're defending a corner, because actually I think if you've got potentially 15 players crowding, it makes it the keeper coming for the corner almost impossible. I want to see keepers coming for corners a lot more, whether or not they're catching or whether or not they're punching. And one final point. Iron fans of the right generation will remember back in the late 80s, what Mick Buxton used to do was he left 4 up from the corners as a matter of policy, and they did score a couple off the back of that. I honestly think there's value in terms of leaving men up from corners, but it seems to be the done thing now with everybody. It's not just Butler, it wasn't just Dean. It's happening at every club, not just us, and has been for a few years now.
Ben Maidman asks, what do you guys think the title will be this year? Playoffs or champions? What do you think of the FA Cup and the FA Trophy? Are they important? I'll answer that one. I don't think we'll win the league. I think we'll make the playoffs. I would like to see us go on a cup run, actually, because we haven't done that in forever. So, yeah, I think in lieu of the fact that I don't think we'll go up, I would like us to go on a bit of a cup run. Some thoughts from Donna Eldred Dobbs. She says she thinks Beeson and Rowley have looked really good in pre-season. And she says she wouldn't like to be in Andy Butler's shoes to try and pick a starting 11 because any one of them could be in the first team based on what she's seen in pre-season. She asks that the fans behave themselves, don't throw anything onto the pitch, and please be sensible because it will impact the club financially. Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I do have a question from Stuart Moore. Stuart Moore says, hope you're well, guys. Hope you had a good summer. I feel we have a better squad with a great work ethic this season. What do you think? Yeah, I think work ethic definitely will be a big telltale thing from the club this season. I think Butler seems to be obsessed with being the fittest team in the division. He says Butler is the man to bring the glory days back. And could we please tell the fans about the football card on Sunday and Wednesdays, fundraising money for the club? Yeah, of course. So, Stuart Moore, you guys, I'm sure know him. Iron World, he did so much fundraising for the club last season in particular. He helped us as well with our fundraising for the club with a game that we had against the Wakefield Everton branch. And what he does is he does a football card. So, the old style football cards where you've got like about 30 different teams. It's £1.50 per team. And every week he does like 2 or 3 cards and he gives the money to the club. It generates a good amount of funds for the club. I think the prize is usually something like a £50 voucher in the club, something like that. And you need to check his the fans page out, because Stu is always posting things on there, auctions, sales, raffles, whatever it is. And again, just raising money for the club, vital funds for the club. I mean, I don't even know the amount he's raised now. It's tens of thousands. You know, it's ridiculous the amount of money that Stu has raised. Right, we have a question here from Joe Brownbill, who asks for our league predictions, and he's a Chester fan. Now, we are a little bit tight for time, so what I thought I would do is we will tomorrow, when we put this podcast out, we will upload pictures of what our predictions are, rather than talking about it now, because it'll just take too long based on our time constraints. So we'll put our predictions out tomorrow, and we'll tell you what they are, and then you can tell us that we're clearly very, very wrong. Before we finish, I would just like to mention the Fantasy Premier League. So, as I mentioned earlier, we did it last season. We're doing it again this season. The winner of the league last season was Travis Gallagher. And we've already got nearly 100 people have signed up. And Marco, over to you. Tell everybody about the prizes that will be up for grabs this season.
Yeah, well, this year there's trophies. That's as simple as it is. Like I said, we've nearly got 100 people already. Last year we got 178. Obviously, that was huge. If we get anywhere close to that again, it'd be fantastic. That is the aim. We want to be there or thereabouts. The response has been really good. Obviously, we are going to be a lot more on top of it this year. We did our best last year, but obviously.
What's all this waste stuff? You were running it. Don't pass the buck here, sunshine.
Me, but no, it was really good to see how many people joined, and we're looking forward to it again this year. So yeah, obviously Travis came from nowhere last year, so it just shows even if you're well out of it, 5 to 6 weeks left, it is still up for grabs. There's been a few rule changes as well this year, so that's worth noting. Just check it out on the app when you do make your team. Just go steady with your team names. We don't want to be kicking anyone, and obviously you're growing. Yeah, you're not daft. So yeah, but please do join. We've had a few people message us asking if their kids can join, if it's under 18 friendly. Of course it is. That's fine. That's why we're just sort of on top of it with names. Let's be respectful. And yeah, let's have a really good year. And I look forward to lifting the trophy.
The league,
who won out of the 4 of us in the pod? Who came top last season?
Yeah, you did. How many trophies do you get for that? So the code to sign up, guys, all lowercase.
More than you.
P7WWDS. The links are on our social media. One final thing to tell you about the charity game, which our next charity football game, which we're taking part in, is on the 12th of October. It's a 5:45 kickoff at Bottisford Town after the Farsley game at home. We're raising money for, off the top of my head, Ward 5 at Sheffield Children's Hospital, which is the ward that looks after Evie. Of course, we've done lots with Evie now. We're going to continue to help Evie as much as we can. So we've got a game on the 12th of October, 5:45 kickoff. Get down after the Scunny Farsley game and watch us all in action. I have one more question, which we won't get round to today, but it's from Scott Paxton. Scott, I promise you, the next podcast, we will spend a good 10 minutes answering this question because it's a really, really good one. Right. We've got through everything. We've just kept under an hour. Whistle-stop tour of pre-season and the upcoming season. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope if you are listening to this on the way to Brackley, I hope it's a fantastic day for us all. And up the iron, long live the new ownership, long live the club, and all the best to everybody at the club for the coming season.